What is up, everybody? Alex from ANAK here, and today I want to share with you 5 of my top Pro Tools shortcuts to help speed up your editing workflow. So to me, editing with speed and efficiency is super important. Something that I strive for all the time is to find the fastest and easiest way to edit something. So I'm always looking for new shortcuts and new workflows to try and figure that out. Now, I feel it's a bit ironic because I probably spend just as much time looking for new and better ways to do things as the time it actually saves me. So that's why I want to pass that on and share it with you so you don't have to do the same thing that I do. So one of my main philosophies when looking for faster ways to edit is to try and move my hands as little as possible. When I have it placed on the keyboard and on my trackball, I don't want to have to move it from that position. For instance, I keep my trackball so close to my keyboard that I can hit enter with my thumb because I have to hit enter a lot for different pop-ups and windows. Once I got used to having it that close, that made things speed up really quickly because I didn't have to move my hand to hit enter, which is in the middle of the keyboard, kind of inconveniently. So the shortcuts that I'm going to be sharing with you today are based around trying to keep my hands as stationary as possible. Also, some of these shortcuts you may already know, but I use them in slightly different ways to maximize efficiency. Now, the first thing I have to say is that all these shortcuts are based around having the keyboard focus mode on my edit window. That's the little AZ button up at the top right-hand corner of the edit window. If you don't have this on, click it, make it turn yellow. This is such a handy tool to have on, and frankly, through all my years of using Pro Tools, I've never found a reason to turn it off. So I highly recommend learning the shortcuts based around having that on. Basically, what keyboard focus mode does is opens up single key keyboard shortcuts. So now that we have keyboard focus mode on, let's dive into these 5 shortcuts. I do have them recapped in the description below, as well as I'm working on a essential Pro Tools shortcuts guide, which will be linked below when it's out, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Also, stick around to the end of the video because I have a major tip that I'm going to share with you guys about one little thing that changed my entire editing workflow. It goes hand in hand with my last Pro Tools shortcut, so be sure to stick around for that. The first shortcut that I want to share with you is actually a pair of shortcuts, and that is the A and the S key, which is used to trim regions. If you have a region and you place your cursor, if you hit the A key, it will trim from the beginning of the region to where your cursor is, and if you hit the S key, it will trim from that to the end of the region. Now, the one really nice part about this is it also works on fades, which most people don't realize. So if you have a fade on the end of a region like this, you can use it to trim the end of the region to where your cursor is, or the end of the fade to trim it to where your cursor is. Now, this also works on crossfades. If you go to a crossfade, you can trim the beginning or the end of the fade to wherever your cursor is. This is very handy when trying to manipulate how long or short your fade is. The second shortcut I want to share with you is the X key. Now, as many of you may know, Command C is copy, Command V is paste. In keyboard focus mode, it is C is copy and V is paste, no command. Command X is normally cut. Now, in keyboard focus mode, just X is cut. But this is where my use of the X key gets a little bit different. I actually use it in replacement of delete. If I have a region I'm trying to get rid of, instead of moving my whole hand from the home row on my keyboard up to the delete key, I just drop my ring finger down and hit the X key, which in essence deletes it. Now, if you're editing really fast and you want to delete fades or delete sections that you have selected, X works great. However, you have to be aware that every time you hit X, it kind of overwrites what you previously had. So if you have something copied into your clipboard that is essential, then you'll have to hit delete instead of X. But for the most part, just hitting X works as a quicker delete key than actually moving your hand to delete. Now, the third shortcut that I have, a lot of people use tab to transient to tab to transients, or you can turn tab to transient off and tab to the beginning or end of regions or fades. However, the thing that people don't normally realize is you can hit Option+Tab to tab backwards to the previous transient or previous end of region. The interesting part of this is that if you're in tab to transient and you go back to a transient, sometimes detects different transients when going backwards to forwards. Not really sure why, maybe it's a glitch, but it's been doing it for many versions now, so it's not something getting fixed anytime soon. Now, the fourth shortcut that I have for you guys is actually a bit of a strange one. It's the Shift key. Now, what do I mean by that? The Shift key added to either tab or clicking will allow you to select from wherever your playhead is to wherever you click on the timeline. For instance, I want to delete this first region right here. I could hit tab to go to the beginning of this region. I could hit Shift tab to then select that region, and then hit X like we just learned, to delete that region. Now, if I don't want to select the whole thing, I can hit Shift and then click, and it will select from where my playhead was to where I just selected. Now this also comes in handy when adding crossfades, because I can go from here and I want to add a crossfade to this section. I can hit Shift and Tab and then F to add a crossfade. Now I want to actually extend that crossfade a little bit. I can then hold Shift and click back to here and hit F again, and it extends that crossfade. You see where using Shift to add selections actually becomes very helpful. Now the easy way to remember this is that if you are trying to select tracks, you would hold Shift to select a batch of tracks on the track window. It's basically the same thing, but you're going through regions and edits. So my fifth tip for you goes right along with the way that I edit, my whole editing workflow, and one thing that really changed the whole way that I edit. So the shortcut is Command 2, 3, and 4, which gives you the trim, selector, and hand tool. This is important because I don't use the smart tool to edit. The reason being is that the smart tool leaves too much room for error and too much time spent trying to make the smart tool do the tool that I need. So I use the selector tool most of the time. Combined with the shortcuts that I just showed you, makes the smart tool a little more obsolete, especially for just audio editing. In the main edit window, I never use the smart tool anymore, which means Command 2, 3, and 4 allow me to select which tool I need and want to use. And once again, without moving my hand very far from the home row. So as you can see here, if I go into my smart tool, right now I have my tracks in small mode, and in my smart tool, there's a very small range where I have my trimmer, my fade tool, my selection tool, everything's very close together. So instead what I would do here is I would just be in the selector tool, and then I use the keyboard shortcuts to do the exact task that I want to do, whether that's altering my fade with the A and the S key, whether that's selecting and deleting with the Shift and the X key, or adding a new fade with the selection and the F key, and I don't have to try and fight with the smart tool to give me the right tool. I just select exactly where I want to go and use the keyboard shortcuts to do the exact task that I want to do. All of those different ways of editing might take a minute to get used to, but make the smart control much less useful for what I want to do, and I don't have to fight with it for what I want to do. All right, that's it for this video. I hope that gave you some food for thought. You know, you can't learn all of the shortcuts all at once, so just adding a few into your repertoire at a time will dramatically improve what you're doing with your editing. I highly suggest giving it time and allowing yourself to try and get used to this style of editing. While it might slow you down to begin with, it'll definitely speed you up over time and allow you to get so much more done, both in editing and in creativity. Leave a comment down below of your favorite shortcut that you use in Pro Tools or that you think people don't use as much as you think they should. This is not the last Pro Tools shortcut video that I'm going to be putting out, as there are so many shortcuts that I want to teach you and different ways to do things, but that's coming in the future. Give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, always be creating.